Okay, I'm back, and I'm here to talk about the fourth step inventory. After my initial resentment inventory introduction, in that description, you'll find links to the PDF where you can print out the worksheet for the resentment inventory and also a prompt sheet. And I'll probably link it in this video also, so make it easy to find. The initial column, the first column, we work from top to bottom. Don't ever work across. It gets us bogged down, and we have much more trouble. I had much more trouble finishing it. So my experience has shown top to bottom, this is the way to do it. So we list the people, the institutions, the rules that we grew up with that we have a resentment toward. You want to put those in the column. And if you have more than one resentment towards someone, skip a box. Give yourself a little bit of space. Today we're here to talk about the second column. And the second column, I'm sorry, this is backwards on here. I know I'm filming in selfie mode. The reason I have it, why am I angry, the cause. And we don't want to minimize here or be spiritual or be nice. This is where you allow yourself to be as critical or judgmental or as petty as you feel. Let's just get it out, because let's just do it. We might as well dive deep. This is where I really like to see people just let loose and put it down on paper. If the name comes to you, put it down and then talk about what the cause is. Now, we don't have to write a lot. I'm going to use an example, and I'm sorry to say this. I have a couple friends named Susie, but for some reason I picked that name out of a hat and I made this sort of compilation. It's not true, but a compilation of a lot of the fifth steps that I've done. And so I'm going to use it as an example to work through the steps, the rest of the steps. So I'm going to say that I have a resentment toward Susie. And I have a couple of resentments towards Susie, say 3 resentments towards Susie. So I might need to leave a little bit of room here. And then I'm going to go into the second column. And I'll tell you the story about Susie. Not true. And if you ever meet my friend Susie, please don't tell her I'm doing this, because I have a couple friends named Susie. So Susie and I used to live together, and my boyfriend lived there. And so I was drinking a lot. This is just an example I'm using because it's a great illustration. I'll use another one later. And say I was drinking a lot, and this is specifically for alcoholism, let's say, but it could be for anything. And I was getting, my life was becoming unmanageable. I was trying to control things and trying to control my addiction, my alcoholism, my shopping, my money spending, my eating, whatever it was, hiding it typically. And I started to notice that Susie and my boyfriend were whispering in the other room. And I started to think, because I'm kind of messed up now, and I'm drinking a lot, or I'm using a lot, or whatever it is that I'm doing, I'm not thinking straight. We saw that in the second step, the insanity of what happens when I try to hold on to the power. And so I started thinking that maybe they were having something going on the side, and maybe he was cheating on me, and maybe she was stealing my boyfriend from me. And in my mind, I can talk myself into anything, into believing anything. I can tell myself the story. So I told myself the story that Susie and my boyfriend were cheating on me, and she stole my boyfriend. And then I started noticing that some money was missing, and I realized, like, I think she's stealing my money. And then I noticed that my alcohol was missing. And I was, I know I had more. I know that there was more in that bottle. And it could have been the same thing with money. It could have been the same thing with food, whatever it is. Now, by now, if you've worked this far with me, you understand that you can substitute whatever it is that's ailing you into the suggestions and or the examples that I'm using. So I'm saying that Susie stole my boyfriend, she stole my money, and now I think she's stealing my liquor. And I never asked her. I never talked about it. I never said anything to my boyfriend. I just assumed this, and this answered my queries as to what's going on here. This is the story I told myself. So I write down Susie's name in the first list, and then over here, all I have to do, this is not a lot of writing, you guys. I know a lot of people talk about writing their whole life story. I don't need to write my whole life story. I just need to take notes, make notes, and get through this. And so over here in the second column, I'm going to write boyfriend. I could even write BF. Boyfriend, money, booze. Those are the 3 resentments that I have towards Susie. And then that's it. I don't have to do a lot of writing. I just have to get it down on paper. And so another statement another example I'm going to talk about is, say, my veterinarian. Again, this isn't true. But I live in a small town, and my dog got sick. And I took my dog to the veterinarian, and the veterinarian told me, here's a prescription for these pills. There's a good chance that if you get these pills that the dog will straighten out. If not, we're going to probably have to do surgery. So I took the prescription, and I found out that it was like $50 or $75 for these pills. And if I'm drinking, I need that money. I'm not going to spend that money on $50 or $75 on the dog. And I can talk myself into believing that the dog will be okay. And I'll just feed it better. And I'll just pay attention to it. And it'll be okay. Because I really need that alcohol. I really need that food. I really need that shopping. I really need whatever it is that I'm thinking that I need myself, that I can't use that money on the dog. I can't afford it. And so I don't get the pills. And I continue to drink or whatever it is. And then I don't have the pills, and the dog gets sicker, and eventually I have to take it back to the doctor, and the doctor says, did you give the dog the pills? And I lie because I don't want him to think poorly of me, and I don't want him to know that I didn't do what he suggested and that I'm not a good pet owner because I'm prideful. And I said, yeah. And he says, all right, well, the pills didn't work, so we're going to probably have to do surgery. And then he tells me the bill for the surgery, and it's some ridiculous amount of money. I'll say $1,500 for the surgery, $3,000, it doesn't matter, $500, it doesn't matter. And I'm outraged because I'm thinking, oh my God, I can't come up with that kind of money. I can't use that money for a surgery. I have to use that money for rent or for drinking or for shopping or for eating or whatever it is that I think that I'm doing that I'm so addicted to that I have to hoard. Typically, if I have a problem, money is the root of a lot of the problems because I need it for whatever it is that I think that's outside of myself that I need to make myself feel better on the inside. So I don't get the surgery, and I just don't go back. And the dog gets sicker, and eventually the dog dies. And I am so upset, but I can't let anybody know really what happened. So I start fabricating this story. And the story is that, I went to the vet and he told me the dog was going to be okay. And then he told me that he was going to do surgery, and the surgery was a ridiculous amount of money. And I can't, afford that, and why he wouldn't work with me. And the dog got sick anyway, and the dog died. And I don't take responsibility in any way, shape, or form. I want to blame it on the vet. It's his fault. Somehow I'll find a way to turn it around. And then P.S., I'm going to go around talking about the vet to everybody and telling them, this guy did this to me. I'm a victim. I did the right thing, and he didn't help me, and he wanted this, he was greedy. He just wanted too much money. He wouldn't help my dog. Whatever the story is, guys, I'm just using this as an example, but how we do these things. If you're watching these videos and working on a step program, then you have something that you can substitute here for my example, just like with Susie and those things. So those are how I put this out. I'm going to put the vet, and I'm going to put in here dog. That's all I have to put, because I'll tell you what, by the time it comes to the fifth step and I'm ready to talk about it, I don't need any prompting, because I've been carrying these resentments around for a long time. Because, of course, as I said, resentment, the Latin root word of resentment is sentire, which means to feel. And anytime I put the word re in front of a word, it's going to mean to do it over and over again, which is insanity. And so I tell myself this story, and I tell anybody else that listens, by the way. I tell this story about what they're doing to me, how I've been wronged, how I'm a victim. And I can't see my part in it. And besides that, I've been telling this story for so long now that I believe it. I mean, I don't even know reality sometimes because of the way that I've told these stories, and I've spun them so that I come out, looking good in them. And of course, a lot of people that know you closely, especially if you're dealing with alcohol or drugs, especially, they're going to be on to you. You just don't think it yet. I just didn't know it, that they were on to me. So now we're going to move into the third column. And so you do that all the way down. You write down the resentment, and then you just write a little note about whatever it is about, because you really, honestly, do not need to write a whole lot here. You just have to make a notation. Because when someone asks you what's it about, you're going to remember what it's about. So the third column, it says, in most cases, it was found that the following was hurt, threatened, or interfered with. And then you can see the definitions. Look these words up if you have any problem. But this is what it affects. It affects there's 7 of them: self-esteem, pocketbook, security, ambition, pride, personal relationships, and sex relationships. And those are the things that it affects. Now, there are little numbers in these columns, and these are referring to where it talks about this in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, because that's where these 12 steps come from, and they're adapted for use in general ways. But this book is a terrific book. They say, I know I've said this before, it's a very spiritual book in a lot of ways, and you can use alcohol or alcoholism or alcoholic, and you can insert whatever it is that you're dealing with that's making your life unmanageable. For those words, you can substitute them. But we're going to take Susie, and we're going to take it across. And so Susie is stealing my boyfriend. And what is it that it affects? And all I have to do is check. So my experience is here that if you don't have at least 5 of these boxes checked off for every one of the resentments you have, then you're maybe not going deep enough. So we're going to show here how you can see how these things affect my life. So how does it affect my self-esteem? Well, Susie stealing my boyfriend, how does it affect my self-esteem? Like, I can't believe, he would leave her. He would leave me for her. I can't believe that he doesn't think that I'm all that and then some. How could he do this to me? And my pocketbook, well, he was paying part of the rent, and he was helping me out, and he was paying for my liquor a lot of the times, and he was paying part of the bills, and it's going to put a crimp on me because now I have to be completely self-supporting and responsible for myself. And how did it affect sorry, I got to get my glasses on. How did it affect my security? Well, I mean, he was a security measure for me because if we went out, I didn't have to worry about getting hurt by somebody else or going home with somebody else, or, he would drive me home. He would get me home safely. He would always make sure that if I was out drinking, partying, I wasn't partying after a while, doing drugs, whatever it was, that he would be able to help me and that he would be there for me. If I needed the money, he would, pony up. And so it could be anything. So now we're talking again about, about food, about money, anything. My sense of security sometimes comes from other people. And so how did it affect my ambitions? Well, I had ambitions for him. I thought he was going to stick around because I needed him to help pay the bills and be my security and to be there for me and, to take care of me. I had plans for him. And how did it affect my pride? Don't they know who I am? How could they do this to me? How could he leave me for her? How could she steal him from me? Don't they know who I am? Pride goeth before the fall. Boy, that's an understatement in the big picture here, working these steps. You'll see. Personal relationships. Well, listen, anytime anybody called me or I saw anybody, how are you doing? Like, oh, she's stealing my boyfriend and he's leaving me for her and pour me another drink, by the way, if it's alcoholism you're dealing with. Pour me, the pity pot. I did another video on the pity pot. Feel sorry for me. Take my side. I'm telling you, you guys, here's what I found out after all these years. There's a lot of this sort of like schoolyard behavior that we do. We don't even know we're doing it. A lot of the times we're using coping mechanisms that we learned when we were kids, and we used it on the playground or when we were kids in the house. And that's what this is going to do. It's going to help us to weed some of these old coping mechanisms out so that we can clean up our act and keep moving without being held back by a lot of these things that aren't serving us very, very well anymore. And that's what an inventory is we're going to get rid of the things that aren't working, get rid of the things that are expired and we don't need them anymore, and they're not effective anymore, and keep the things that work because there also is, some good things, but I just have had them covered up by all of the character defects that have been glaring for so long. And the sex relationships, I mean, if Susie's stealing my boyfriend, duh, that's pretty obvious, I'm even if he wants to get intimate, I'm pissed at him because he's hanging out talking to Susie, and in my mind, he's leaving me, he's cheating on me. And of course, this is just my reality. It really has nothing to do with reality as a rule, and I don't really care because it's the story I've told myself. I've, talked myself into some pretty interesting spots. And this is one of them. And so we're going to go back. So those are all the boxes, and they're all checked for that. And now we're going to go back and we're going to talk about Susie stealing my alcohol. And how could she do this to me? My self-esteem? Yeah, how could she do this to me? I thought she liked me. I thought we were friends, and she must not think much of me, and she must think I'm stupid, and she must think that I don't know what's going on. And then I get kind of pissed because not only am I hurt, but I'm angry because I think she thinks I'm stupid and that she doesn't think that I know what's going on, and she's treating me like nothing's going on. And so I have that's the resentment. And then my pocketbook, because alcohol costs money and I have to spend money to get what I need, because if I need that alcohol, food, shopping, whatever it is, I need it. And if I don't get it, then I'm going to be resentful. And so it does affect my pocketbook. My security, a lot of the times for alcoholics or drug addicts, their security is in knowing that they have that alcohol or drugs and they have access to it. And it's the same thing with food. It's the same thing with shopping. If I'm obsessive about something and I start thinking about it, I know that I need it to be okay. So it does affect my pocketbook and my security, my ambitions. I had plans for that bottle. I'm not going to be able to function if I don't have that bottle. I'm not going to be okay if I don't have that food. I'm not going to be okay if I don't have that person, because we can be talking about that too. My ambitions towards that person, place, or thing. My pride, how could she do this to me? Doesn't she know that I need that alcohol? Doesn't she know that part of, how I deal with life is by using alcohol, and now she's stealing my alcohol? Like, how could she do that to me? I thought I was her friend. And personal relationships, same thing. I'm going to go around, I'm going to start talking to people. They're going to ask me how I'm doing. I can't believe she's stealing my liquor. P.S. That's slander. That comes in later. But I'm accusing her of things that I honestly don't ever stop to really wonder, is that true? I am just basing it on my perception. And I'll tell you what, guys, especially alcoholism, this is a disease of perception. My perception is warped at best. And so if I'm going around and talking to people about, look what she did to me, look what she did to me, eventually they see me coming, they're going to cross over to the other side of the street. They're not going to want to talk to me. They're not going to want to listen. Again, pour me, pour me another drink. And then sexual relationships, if I'm intimate with anybody, my boyfriend who she's stealing, or anybody or anything, the same thing. They're not going to want to hear this. This is not very sexy to be talking about your problems all the time when someone's trying to, cuddle up with you. It's just not very attractive. Sexual relationships or personal relationships, it's not an attractive trait to be complaining all the time. And P.S. not being willing to do anything about it. So complain all you want if you're willing to do something about it, like the steps, or stop. So that's about the alcohol. And the same thing about the money. So Susie over here, and now it's boyfriend, alcohol, money. And now I go across, check, self-esteem. Yes, she stole my money. Doesn't she know who I am? I can't believe she did this to me. Does she think I'm stupid? I think she thinks I'm stupid. I think she thinks that I don't know what's going on. My self-esteem is definitely affected because of what she thinks about me. My pocketbook, obviously, it's my money. Security, obviously, because my money has a lot to do with my security. It's to pay the bills. It's to buy the alcohol. If you're an alcoholic, it's to buy the drugs or to buy the food or go shopping. Money is a huge part. They say in these steps that the two hardest things to deal with are finances and romances. Amen. So security, ambition. I had plans for that money, whether I was going to buy alcohol, whether I was going to buy food, whatever it is that I'm addicted to. It could be clothes, it could be makeup, it could be sports equipment, it could be, toys, motorcycles, bicycles, anything. And I know what it is. I know that there's things that cut me off from the, as they say in the big book, sunlight of the spirit. So I know I need to do some work on this. And then pride, obviously. Doesn't she know who I am? How could she do this to me? Personal relationships, yes. Sex relationships, yes. Again, I'm going around complaining, not an attractive quality. And so those are the way. Check. I don't have to write any of that stuff out, by the way. I just have to go across and check it. With the veterinarian, same thing. Self-esteem, I think he thinks that I'm, a bad pet owner, and what are people going to think about me? And my dog is part of my self-esteem because when I go out, people are talking to me and interested because I have this cool dog, and everybody thinks I'm so cool because of my dog. Pocketbook, absolutely, because they want too much money. Security, my dog protects me in ways that I don't even understand sometimes. I'm home alone, or I'm out on the street, or if I'm drunk and I have my dog with me. I have this sense of security because I have the dog, even if I forget where I tied him up. Don't forget, this is not all true. Ambitions, yeah, I had plans for that dog because, of course, he was part of my security, my self-esteem. I had plans to have him around for a long time. Pride, yeah, I don't want people to think I'm a bad pet owner. I don't want people to think poorly of me. Don't they know who I am? I'm great. I know what I'm doing. It's not my fault. It's the veterinarian's fault. Personal relationships, again, complaining. People are going to see me coming and they're going to walk across to the other side of the street. Same thing about sexual relationships. So whatever it is, you're going to have check marks here. And I say at least 5 out of 7. Honest to God, if you're really paying attention and you really see. Now, don't forget, we're going down here. We're going to write the resentments down, top to bottom, and then top to bottom, check, and then stop, and then watch for my next video on step 4. It sounds like a lot of work, but it really isn't, because it's just notations on this resentment inventory that hopefully you've printed it out or just drawn lines down the paper, all done in your notebook or on the papers if you printed them out. And keep them all together, keep them all safe, keep them where you can get to them but nobody else can, because this stuff is some pretty hard stuff to write. But I'm telling you, trust me, keep walking through this with me, and I will show you the way to recovery. I will show you the way out of whatever it is that's ailing you. And it is not me. I have nothing to do with it except that I'm presenting the material that I have gleaned over the last 34 years of being in recovery and walking this path and listening to people's stories and their 5 steps and working with people on these steps. So if you want to work with me personally, I'm going to come up with a way to do that, because I will have a way of contacting me on the YouTube channels and the ability to perhaps talk to me on the phone or a Zoom meeting or in person. But right now, let's just get this work done. So come along and get these printed out and get started, and I'll see you on the next video. Thanks. Bye.